I want to go back to the thing you were talking about with the sponsors, BlockFi and whatnot. I just want to say, I publicly endorsed FTX, and we did the overwhelming majority of our trading activities there, and had for a couple of years. And I told people it was a great place. I told people it was as safe as Coinbase for them to keep their assets there. And like, I just want to apologize publicly for that, because people would have listened to what I said, and people would have lost money because of that. And I'm like, I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life.
I don't know if you heard our last show we made with Matt Odell, and he held my hand to the fire with regards to BlockFi, and he said to me, he said, "Did you make a mistake?" And I've like really wrestled with it, because I was like, no, because with my information at the time, I believe they were, a legit business. They were regulated. They were responsible. So I said, no. I said, I feel bad for everyone who's lost money, but I don't think I made a mistake. That's why I'm not going to apologize. But by the time I got to the end of the interview, I actually had to reflect on that and go, oh, hold on a second. Like, I'm not responsible for what happened, but perhaps I should have seen the signs earlier. Perhaps, the warning signs, well, they were there earlier.
Yeah.
And Danny, do you think we can say, if we were 100% honest, do you think we could say that we would not have had FTX as a sponsor?
No, we probably would have done.
In a scenario where, say, Gemini ended, no other one had come in, and FTX said, look, can we sponsor the show? Obviously we would have considered it. Secondly, we would have said to them, we will only promote any of your Bitcoin products, which is our policy. But I don't think I could, we ended the BlockFi sponsorship 4 or 5 months before they stopped withdrawals. And we have to be 100% honest about that. That ended because, their funds were tight and they couldn't afford the rate anymore. And they said, can we cut the rate? And I said, would you just want to end it? There's every scenario, if I'm 100% honest, BlockFi would have still been a sponsor when they stopped withdrawals. And so it would be dishonest for me to say, well, it's not our issue. We ended that sponsorship. If FTX had got in touch and they'd offered us a good rate and they just said, you can just promote the Bitcoin, there's every chance we would have been. And so I think we're all reflecting on this.
That's a soul searching mental exercise to go through, because I've been talking to some folks about maybe starting a podcast and the sponsorship shit. And in the back of my head, I'm like, dude, give me fucking Athletic Greens and Manscaped. At least then I don't have to sit there and be terrified that I'm going to hose thousands of people that are listening to me because if this just happened with FTX, it's like, how do you look at any crypto company and be like, oh, this is for sure good to go, and I'm not going to torch my listeners on this? And that is, when I say soul searching, it's like the embarrassment and the pain that you feel from that. It makes you sit there and you go, what the fuck am I doing in this shit, dude?
Yeah.
What am I sitting here doing here?
Yeah, Coinbase are not the most popular exchange with Bitcoiners, because they expanded into shitcoins and
rough fee schedule too.
Yeah, and some people argue that Brian Armstrong hasn't always been the best advocate for Bitcoin. He's pushed for things that they disagree with. But in terms of an exchange, if you're going to trust your Bitcoin with anyone, all right, they might be selling your data to certain agencies, but in terms of, do I think there is a rug there? That's probably the one I trust them, alongside Kraken and Gemini, I trust the most not to rug your exchange.
I do wonder if they just got lucky, though, that the SEC didn't let them have a product, and they might have been caught in this as well.
Well, that's a different thing. That's based on the earn thing. Yeah, possibly did.
The interesting thing, and this is what makes Gensler look even more like a clown, is that Coinbase's yield product. You remember that tweet thread that Brian Armstrong put out about talking about how the SEC shut them down when their direct competitors were obviously offering the same product? Well, BlockFi and Gemini Earn were running all this stuff into Genesis. Coinbase's product was actually a blue chip DeFi wrapper. So they weren't going to go to a centralized borrow lending business. They were going to send it into Aave and Compound and a couple other blue chip DeFi things, which all of that shit held up through all of this, which is that makes you think too, right? And I don't know, it makes Gensler look like a complete joker.
Well, he's looked like a clown for a long time now. He, slow to deal with it. I mean, to issue action against Genesis and Gemini
sued him yesterday.
After the fact, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why now?
It's very, very clownish.
Well, it seems to me it's like, I think that is an admission that he's fucked up and he hasn't got control of a space he claims to be wanting to, well, he is in a position to control. But yeah, I get it. Look, we spoke to a guy we've been thinking of having somebody helping us with our ad sales, and we were like, yeah, I'll take a mattress. I'll take Squarespace. I'll take Athletic Greens.
Yeah.
Supplement that with some subscriptions. Maybe we do some bonus content. It's too stressful dealing with the potential losses for other people, and the barrage of, I would say, fair criticisms, but some overstep the mark. It just becomes really difficult. Like people saying, "Are you going to pay that money back?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's difficult. Yeah, all these things that you're wrestling with, we're wrestling with. I think a lot of other people are wrestling with.
Yeah, if you're, it's like it's likely trusted third-party middlemen that are going to be ones that are paying for sponsorships for podcasts. And, that's not absolutely true, but that's, in the large majority of cases, that's the case. And back to my earlier point, before we start talking about something else, the unacceptable level of opacity that has been present there, like the potential solutions there, and to talk about the Gensler thing, you have three options about what to do with like trusted middlemen in crypto. You can say, forget all of it. We're done with it. We're moving the whole thing on chain. No more Coinbase, no more Binance. No, we're not going to deal with that. We're going to do DEXs and borrow lending. We're not going to do centralized borrow lending anymore. We're going to do DeFi protocols. That would be option one. Option two is you allow some trusted third parties to remain, and you regulate them. And look, I'm a libertarian. Like the number of times that you're going to hear the words coming out of my mouth, please regulate something that I'm interested in. Like, I don't know if I've ever said that before, ever. Like, it's just not in me. But then the third option is self-regulation. And option one, to me, feels like a non-starter for the next couple of years. The world's just not ready for that.
Free markets will allow people, like if it's a free market, if you want a free market, people are going to create these companies and products over and over again.
Yeah. And the world's just not ready for, certainly not to make light of what happened to Luke Dash, but it's like, that was kind of like, I feel like a billboard for like how reasonable is it to expect the world to start dealing with private keys?
I'm going to push back on that one. We did an interview with Jameson Lopp discussing that. I think that's a red herring for self-custody. Luke Dasher likely had a setup that he created back in maybe 2010, hasn't updated it. He's somebody who openly admitted that like security, did Lopp say security isn't his strong point? He's a coder. He's a developer. Look, it's his issue, but he's likely created a setup and never changed it. Nobody else is going to be creating a self-custody setup like him.
Right.
They're going to likely get a cold card, a ledger, or a Trezor, perhaps a multi-sig. For everyone I know who's moved onto a hardware wallet, I know very few stories of people who fucked that up.
Right.
Very, very few. I remember a guy got phished because of Ledger and he lost some Bitcoin. And I know some people have got targeted with the telephone scam. Yeah. But generally speaking, I don't know anyone who's had a bad experience with that. It wasn't like Luke had a multi-sig setup with Casa and did something stupid and fucked up. He had such a unique setup that
was very old.
Yeah, very old. So I think that is a red herring to compare to say whether people are ready for that. I think people are ready for this. A hardware wallet isn't that hard. My dad would struggle, and there will be people who struggle, but you're writing down 24 words and hiding them. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
You've got to, if you get a hardware device, you set it up, you write down your 24 words, you transfer $10 to it, you wipe it, You retest those 24 words and you learn where to hide those safely.
Right.
That is 95% of what you got to do. The other 5% is like just not like having those seed words safely. So if you have a house fire, I think people are capable of that. And then if their assets get meaningful, there's Unchained Capital, there's Casa, both very good multi-sig products. Like I've had a great experience with Casa.
Yeah.
It's geographically distributed. You cannot come to me with a $5 wrench and get it from me, and I managed to manage that very easily. So yeah. I think things will get better, but I think we're okay there.
Okay. Well, then that's one option is to move all of this on chain and say we're not going to do trusted third party middlemen anymore, and we can argue about whether or not the world's ready for that. And in your view, maybe it is. In my view, I don't think it is. And then 3, self-regulation by itself. We failed so utterly at that I don't see any particular logical reason to say you can snap your fingers in January of 2023 and we're just going to make that work. So to me, it feels like some combination of 2 and 3. Regulation around the trusted middlemen that you allow to remain in the space, and then more effective self-regulation, which goes back to the point of like good actors being louder, having sharper elbows, being more adversarial, being more acute in criticism, being more willing to publicly call out and question the motives, the intentions, the actions of all kinds of different actors in the space. I mean, it's so obvious at this point that this ecosystem, like bad actors come to this ecosystem like a moth to a flame. Like, it's like, if you're trying to make as much money as possible and you don't care at all about who you hurt on the way, where else would you go other than crypto? And like, we have to acknowledge that and then stop pretending like the way we have been acting is like sufficient to defend against that. Cause I just don't think it is. And like, back to my earlier point, I wasn't doing enough. I got to do more. We all got to do more.